I want to get started with just having you, talk about the company and where the idea formed, and then sort of where you're at today. We touched on you guys entering your second market, but what's the Nicole empire look like today?
Thank you. Well, I'm so so honored to be here and to talk to everyone. Thank you so much for asking. I love, doing this and really talking about, what I do every day and hearing also about what other people are doing to make a great impact in the world with their business and their ideas. So, right now we have, so it's HipCityVeg, Bar Bonbon, and Charlie Was a Sinner. I started and opened the first HipCityVeg in 2012. And that was after 4 years of extensive planning, business plan writing, finding investment, and really just like a creative deep dive to figure out everything from how many straws I was going to have in the restaurant at any given moment to what the name was going to be, which took me 3 years to figure out. So, yeah, we opened the first one in 2012, then another Hip City University in University City. I got a little, shiny things everywhere and a little distracted with another concept. And the idea really, the intention and the vision was to continue to open HipCityVeg. That was my original business plan. But I had an opportunity to work with someone who I knew could definitely help and be a long-term investor. I also really loved the street. It was Midtown Village, the 100 block. That was 10, 15 years ago, was the Sin Strip of Philadelphia. So I knew I could, HipCityVeg is my yoga, green smoothie, daytime, and then I could do this like darker, moodier expression. And then also see how I could serve plant-based food in a different environment. And Bar Bonbon was another opportunity, and that opened in 2015, and then we quickly sort of got focus again on HipCityVeg, where we're continuing to expand.
And you opened up HipCityVeg down in DC.
That's right. Yep, we opened in 2016 in it's called Chinatown on 7th Street between G and H. So it was a bold move on our part because of the area is the highest rent district in, I would say, in DC, that pretty much, hundreds of dollars a square foot, and we had to make a lot of big decisions, hard decisions. Do we want to open 2 blocks down the street? Where, and if I'm getting off topic, by the way,
no, this is super conversational. Just keep going.
It's like my brain dump. So, we had to make a lot of hard decisions. Do we go a couple blocks down the road where the rent is a quarter of the price, but then we have to pay, probably, tens and tens of thousands of dollars in marketing? Or do we go where there's a lot of foot traffic but take a huge risk if we don't bring in revenue? So it's just one little, one problem we had going to DC. And then, but after a while, with continued brand awareness, we're where we wanted to be when we first opened. So now we're able to open a second one in DC, which is really exciting. Awesome. Yeah, that'll open in July.
And so you touched on the real estate component of being in the restaurant business, and obviously there's a food aspect of being in the restaurant, and there's the finance aspect involved, there's marketing. What's your background? How did you pull all of those things together to come up with the concept for HipCityVeg and then roll out from there?
Yeah, so my background is in theater and Shakespearean theater.
So really on par with eventually opening a restaurant.
Right, exactly. Like every good actor, I spent a lot of time in restaurants, So, but I did. I spent tons of time in restaurant, working my way through college. I was in grad school for Shakespearean classical drama. with a focus on Shakespeare and Greek theater. Loved it, but ultimately it really didn't drive me. It wasn't. I could tell right away, like, this is not going to fulfill me in a deep way. Although I love literature, and it was a great experience, and I think it definitely, there's a lot from that I apply today, excuse me, into my work, and I can touch on that. But so I moved home in 2008, and I was sort of having this existential crisis, like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm only 25 or 26. It's not like, a little dramatic.
It's like a quarter life crisis.
I
had one of them.
Exactly. And, I do what I always do. I start reading and start just finding things that interest me and finding answers that way and talking to people. And, I read The China Study by Dr. T. Cullen Campbell and Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. I was vegetarian at the time, and in The China Study, it's a comprehensive nutritional analysis of how animal protein affects our health. And that was really a profound book to read. And I was living with my parents at the time, trying to convince my father to eat more plants, because he was in his 50s. I think it's a typical story, kind of overweight, kind of sluggish, and a little, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and, after begging him, he's a nurse practitioner, he said, listen, I have these diseases because my father had these diseases. They're genetic. Type 2 diabetes is genetic, and that's that. I have a balanced diet. I don't eat too much sugar. And so I said, no, you have the same diseases because of what you eat. And I bought a blender, made a green smoothie, the same one we sell today at HipCityVeg. And he was hooked. He was like, I can have spinach? Like, that much spinach you put in the smoothie? And he had that, read a few books that I gave to him, and within 2 months of adopting a plant-based diet, he lost 25 pounds. He safely eliminated all 4 medications, safe blood pressure, healthy cholesterol, and completely put his type 2 diabetes into remission. So everything I had been reading and studying happened right before my own eyes with someone I love so much. And I thought... And
relatively quickly. Like, that's a pretty short period of time.
It was dramatic. It was magical, and I thought... So that was really the impetus that just took this off, and yeah.
So with all these different locations in and around Philadelphia and another location down in D.C., what's a typical day look like for you? If there even is a typical day, you're sort of bouncing all around and living on the train and heading down there, and launching another restaurant. It becomes, I'm sure, a focal point of time for a period of time, and then it sort of bounces around to other things. So what's it look like for you in a day? How many different places are you, and how many different hats are you wearing?
It's evolved over the past 7 years. Right now, I'm in a different, office or a different place every other hour. I'm looking at Katie because she helps me. Yeah. I think you texted me once and you're like, we're not that busy, and sent me like 7 pictures of 7 different areas that we had to be in and meetings and everything. So that's where I am right now. But it certainly wasn't like that in the beginning. It took 4 years to write a business plan. I did not know how to create a financial analysis, so I just think that one thing I do have, because I don't have the business background, and so I sort of compensate in other ways. One thing that I do have is I don't have any fear in asking for help, and people minimize that, I think. Every step of the way, I was like, do you know, like, how to do Excel? And they, my friend was like, yeah. And at the time, we weren't that close. We had acquaintances. We had just met. And I was like, well, I have this idea, and I really need to put, like, I know I need my revenue, and I need to know, like, what I'm going to, like, spend money on. And he's like, I can help. And, he turned out to, helping me for a few months, building this Excel financial analysis. We would be up, all hours of the night when I had a deadline, because my investor, who's now my investor, at the last moment would be like, oh, I have a free day tomorrow. Can you come over with that financial analysis? I'd be like, ah.
Right on top of that.
Yeah. And I was doing that while working. Of course, you have to make a living, so I had a day job, and then at night, that was my full focus. So then it changed when I opened the first restaurant. Every single day, I was the cashier. I closed the restaurant at night, so I was mopping the floors. I was cooking the food. If somebody quit, which happens in the restaurant a lot, I was filling that position. And so that was a good, I guess, year until I was like, maybe I should hire a manager to help me. And then I brought someone in, had to let go of some control, and then, it builds and builds. And then from there, okay, going back to my big vision, I know I need an infrastructure. Then that's what I did. And, so it changes over time.
So how did you go about building the team that you have today? Because that, I think when you start a company and you're really passionate about it and you're wearing all the different hats and you are the literal, we talk about it in the person washing the dishes, and you're like literally washing the dishes in your restaurant. Sometimes it's hard to relinquish control, hard to delegate when you want it done a certain way, but you can't clone yourself and be in all these different places. So when you're looking at scaling the business, it becomes really important to have trusted people around you. And sometimes that's a trial and error process. But you've been in business for a while now. So what are your tips about building a team? What do you look for in people? What's your team look like now that are like really trusted partners of yours?
Yeah. So a lot of lessons I had to learn along the way, because you really have to, I had to develop skills to be a leader. And, I'm very task-oriented. I'm extremely goal-driven. And so I was just like, get on the bus, people, let's go, and like, all right, you have to do that. I need to do this. Let's get, and then you look around and you're like, wait a minute, not everyone's following that. I really have to take a step back. And what motivates people to work this hard and to believe in something? I think it's believing in something. And so everything goes back to it goes back to the why. And it's another thing that a lot of people are, talk about, and people talk about passion and talk about mission. But at the end of the day, it is vital. It's the glue that holds all of us together. And so really going back to the years before I opened HipCityVeg, what made me so incredibly passionate about doing this? That's what gets me up every morning. That's what helps me deal with adversity. And then ultimately, that translates into a mission and a vision for everyone else. And today, I'm proud to say we have an incredible team that, yesterday, I was like looking, Katie was making this like major decision. Michelle my VP of Ops, had directed a few people to do something. They were collaborating on another idea. They problem solved. And then I, picked my head up from whatever I was reading. I'm like, thank you. That was amazing. Thank you guys for all of that incredible collaboration and care. So, but that doesn't, that will come. That comes with a lot of practice, a ton of empathy and humbling, and realizing I am doing this for something greater than myself. This is not about me. And that brings a lot of empathy to the work and to who I'm working with.
That's amazing. When you were talking about reaching out for help and relying on your team in terms of reaching out for people that can help you build those Excel spreadsheets and help you build the business plan, were there particular resources or people that you went to that might have served as mentors or serve as mentors now? Because coming from a theater background and then diving into the restaurant industry, there's a lot of self-teaching, right? You have to just go out there, and you certainly have the attitude of like, I'm going to do this. And when you're passionate about it, you're going to overcome all the adversity and the hurdles. But you still have to you have to inevitably write the business plan. You have to get the financial spreadsheet. You have to understand real estate and do some market analysis around where you're going to open your next location. So where did you kind of source that information with a theater background? Are there books that you like, podcasts, Google, mentors that have served for you?
Yeah, because ultimately we can't do this alone. We can't. As much as we're going to get into our head and think about all the obstacles and the problems and why isn't this working, we can't do this alone, so we have to get out of our head and ask anyone for help, that we think, are you better at writing than I am? Because if you are, can you just maybe write a few paragraphs or check this business plan, and I know, well, networking is, I'm bad at networking. I don't, so I'll skip that. No, I think that it's really important to build relationships for sure. But you mentioned the positive attitude. I got to tell you, if there's any single ingredient that will take you from here to there, it is your mental attitude, the state of mind that you have. Because I'm definitely not the smartest person in this room, 100%. I'm not the most talented person in this room, and I know you probably heard this from other entrepreneurs, but it's real. It's the one thing that will get you through obstacles and adversity and also bring and attract the answers to you is your positive attitude and your and also that self-talk. It's like blinders on to all the things that might be in your way. When I told my father, when I was living broke as hell in my parents' house, having left grad school without my MFA, spending however much money in grad school, in debt, getting myself in debt, leaving there, coming home, and telling my dad that I'm going to open a vegan restaurant. He said to me, he goes, so you're telling me in the worst economy since the Great Depression, you are going to open a vegan restaurant where about 1% of the population eats
in the city of cheesesteaks.
In the city of cheesesteaks. I was like, nope, I am going to open 100 of them. And he's like, okay, he's like, get a job. So I had a lot of people telling me, no one eats this way, no one wants to eat this way. Restaurants are very hard. Where are you going to get the money? Oh my God, how many times did I hear, where are you going to get the money? But where are you going to get the money? Where does money? Where are money? And I'm like, I got it. I got this. This is so important. I believe in this. We need to really look at the way we're eating, not just for our own bodies and the people we love, but for the environment and for other living things. It's so important. So finding that thing that you can hook onto and that you really believe in, you can't be ambivalent. I really didn't answer your question. I don't think. Did I?
No, you did. You definitely did.
So mentors, I think. Yes. So, yep, podcast, definitely. Oh, yeah, I think I listened to Abraham Hicks' Law of Attraction, YouTube thing, I don't know, 100 times. I don't know, law of attraction. I kept researching and looking into mentors. I sought out mentors. A good friend of the family was a lawyer, so I would just ask him to go to dinner and hope that he would pay because I didn't have any money. And and he's like an uncle to me and my brother, and he would just say, well, I know you want to create your own faux chicken product, but there must be somebody that can do it better, that you don't have to get into the manufacturing business as well. And so little tiny nuggets that would really help me along the way.
And you touched on it a little bit about that you can't do this alone, and we talked about your team. What else is there for you in terms of a support system? Because being an entrepreneur, especially in those early stages, you talked about years of building a business plan, coming up with the idea, getting to the point of execution, which it usually is that, right? It's years of hunkering down. It's usually iterations on what you're doing. And sometimes it gets really lonely. And even when you've actually launched, it gets really lonely because when you close up the restaurant, your day doesn't end there. There's still more work that needs to be done. So outside of your team, what's the rest of your support system look like when you have those moments of oh my gosh, I've hit a wall. There's a hurdle coming up. I can't believe I got myself into this. What am I going to do next? Who are the people in your life that you rely on?
Yeah, so I have a very strong, thank God, very strong support network. So my mother and my father, it's the Latino culture. We're extremely close. They'll probably move in with me, eventually. That's just how we are. My brother, my friends. I think you can't underestimate how important the support system is. And if you don't have it, it wasn't always like that. It took a lot of work for me to get to a point where my parents trusted me in that way to have that support system, and for my brother to be involved the way he is. So even if you don't have it now, which I was at a point in my life where I didn't have that support system, I had to repair relationships, bring them in, give back, and now I'm thank God I took the time to do that work with the important relationships in my life, which is hard and, can be emotional and stuff, but at the end of the day, sticking together is important because when things get really tough and you're home and you're crying and whatever, you need that person to be you can do this. What are you talking about? Go. You got this. Don't even worry about that problem. You need that.
So weathering those storms, and I always talk about that entrepreneurship. There's a lot of highs and lows, of course, and it's not weekly, it's not daily. A lot of times it's hourly that a deal falls apart or you land a big customer. There's the highs and lows come really quickly. And for me, I need a hobby or something that's a stress outlet for me, a way to unplug, to rejuvenate yourself. What is that for you? What's the stress outlet that keeps you going?
Yeah, I'm not the best example of that because I really just dive back into it,
Most entrepreneurs are never a good example of self-care.
Yeah,
It's
and a lot of people
best.
ask me about work-life balance, and I'm I don't know. Work-life integration I'm doing. I definitely I have to work out. It's just if the good endorphins, the good hormones, tremendously helpful. And I'll definitely do things to take care of myself. I do one little thing that I'm I feel good. One little thing a day, even if it's I don't know, even if it's a extra coffee, at Starbucks or something, or just going out and, one day it was really, the ups and downs, it's a roller coaster every single day. So even just sitting in the park and having, my coffee instead of being in the office for 10 minutes is a little thing. And everybody has their own thing. yeah, I'm always, or if it's getting my nails done, you know, that just makes me feel like, all right, I'm ahead here. Like, you know, sorry guys, I know that you can't probably relate to that, but you know, whatever it is to make yourself feel good, you've got to be in a place where you feel good, because when you're the entrepreneur, people are looking to you for the, like, reassurance, and they're looking to you for the answers. And it's okay to say, I really don't have the answer for this, but for the reassurance, that's like where you have to step it up and really, you know, let people know, like, we're in a good direction here. And if I'm all, you know, and I know there are like movies of like you know, the business owner being like horrible and like a diva or whatever to the people they're working with, but at the end, that's not really sustainable. It's like really, you know, inspiring people and making sure that they feel secure as well is really important. You know, when I had an office, it was a studio apartment, and it was above HipCityVeg. It was like all I could afford at the time. And it was 6 of us in a studio apartment. So we had all of our desks like in this circle, and we like the wall behind us. It was not a good situation. Looking back, I'm like, oh, what did I do? But, you know, and I would say things like, oh, wait a minute, we can't afford this. We're not going to be able to afford that. That's crazy. And I didn't realize, or I'd be like, you know, where did that $25,000 thing that we needed? And I would be really emotional and like stressed out and angry about it. And I didn't realize, like, people were like listening to that and being like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, and being really nervous. And I started to understand how I have to choose my words. Like, you know, even in that moment, I didn't necessarily mean like things are going really bad. I was just super pissed about one situation that I totally knew I was going to be able to take care of. But everyone else around me was like, whoa, wait a minute. And so I realized, wait, I have a responsibility to choose my words carefully and to really be responsible with how I am leading. So again, I don't know where
No, you did. And we're keeping it super conversational. So you brought up another thing of having a team that's really passionate about sharing that mission for you, but keeping your team members motivated. Are there any tips or ways that you do that? Is it eye on the prize and the mission is so important to everybody that they're really passionate about it, and that's what continues to motivate everyone?
That, and also being on the ground floor of something that's taking off. You know, that I think is really exciting. So when hiring, I look for just smart people who are nice and who are self-driven. And then I'm like, okay, let's figure out what you can do. You know, so I'm really creating positions for the people I hire a lot of times. Yeah.
You're giving me these beautiful segues into my next question. So when you talk about being on the ground floor of building something, what do the goals look like? What does HipCityVeg and look like by the end of 2019? What does it look like 5 years from now?
So end of 2019, the goal this year is definitely to open 4 restaurants in 6 months. That I've never done. So I've opened 2 restaurants in 6 months. So this is definitely, but then I had never done that before. So, you know, I've definitely had to bring on extra people, and a lot of people who are smarter than me to figure that out. So that's the goal. It's a big step because I'll also bring in and have a capital event where I'm raising another round of financing for 35 restaurants. So this is a pretty intense year.
And where will the 4 restaurants be? Where will the 4 restaurants be in the next 6 months?
Suburban Square, Ardmore, Radnor on the main line, another one in D.C., DuPont Circle, Spruce Street, Harbor Park. We're also opening again. And then working on a lease for another D.C. location. So, yeah.
I just wanted to plug all of them too. But let's go back to
Thank
the
you.
35 locations. So that's
Yeah.
part of the build-up of 2019 and getting those open, underway, and then the build-up to 35. What does that look like? Is it a Northeast corridor strategy? Are you looking at going into other markets? What can you tell us so far?
Sure. We'll definitely enter another market or two with that many restaurants. We'll continue to build in our hometown, Philadelphia, because it's, just the home field advantage is so important. I underestimated that when going into DC. And so learning how to penetrate into another market, what kind of marketing we have to do was a huge learning lesson. So scaling is a whole nother skill set than being a founder and an entrepreneur, really. The starting phase. This is a different skill set and much more strategic, where the first few years was really about the creative problem solving. Now I have to, for example, food costs. For years, was like, I feel like French fries should cost this much. And, I come in and my CFO came in and he's like, why don't we cost that out? And then he's like, you're losing money on French fries. You're basically in the French fry business and you're losing money on French fries. What are you doing? So now, just really having educated, having data so that I can make educated decisions rather than and it's also scaling. You have to, because it's no longer selling 50 French fries a day. It's selling 50,000. So when you're losing a percentage, that percentage just makes a much bigger impact on the bottom line. Yeah.
We're going to move into a couple of rapid fire questions. So you can give me, the answers off the top of your head. And while we're doing that, I want the audience to start thinking about the questions that you may have. And myself and my team will sort of hand the mic around to the audience so everybody can start thinking about the questions that they want to ask as well. Coffee or tea?
Coffee in the morning, tea at night.
Decaf tea at night? Or
Like herbal tea at night, yeah. But coffee definitely in the morning.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Do you have a dog now?
Allergic to cats. I have a little miniature pincher.
Oh. What was the last book that you read?
The Gratitude Formula.
Interesting. Who's that by? Just Google it.
I forget her name.
Beach or mountains?
Beach or mountains? Oh, that's so hard.
It is.
Oh, now beach, I think. Mm-hmm. I used to be mountains, but now beach.
What was your favorite vacation? Where?
Oh, my favorite vacation. I would say Costa Rica, for sure. No, this is rapid fire, sorry.
No, you can spin on that one.
You want to talk more?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Costa Rica, I had to go. I was after I opened Charlie, and I'm I am going to burn out. My friend's you need to unplug. I literally had to go to the jungle of Costa Rica, where I had no phone service in order to unplug.
Sometimes that's really helpful.
Yeah.
And so you actually, I forgot a follow-up question I had. All the expansions, will they be HipCityVeg concepts? Will Bar Bonbon stay here
one,
and Charlie will
be one. Yeah.
Okay, so Philly gets its own special love.
Absolutely.
Still. So awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So audience questions.
Hi, Nicole. My name's Joe. I'd love to learn a little more about the investment phase, especially the beginning, and how you managed to persuade investors to invest their money. As you said, in the bad economy, 1% of the population eating vegan food. So how did you do it?
Yeah, great question. Well, first I was prepared. I definitely saw the moment where my now investor was like, okay. A very all right, this is good kind of look, sort of impressed that I had brought the business plan with me, and it was 84 pages long, you know, and you don't have to do something that extensive, but, you know, I think, and when he did the rapid fire questions, which they will always do, because they absolutely want to know if you know what you're talking about, I was able to answer the financial question. So I think that's one big way of persuading investors. Showing up with a lot of, well, a lot of passion too. You know, really, no one's going to believe in it if you have to believe in it more than anyone else. In other words, so I think showing up really prepared to answer a lot of questions. You know, I've had people with great ideas, and I've talked to them, and I've asked them financial questions, which at the end of the day, you know, I think you're going to get the attention with what you're passionate about and if having a strong mission, but you have to be able to back it up. And, you know, I would ask someone a lot of questions, and I realized, I'm like, you know what, you need more time to really think about that product and what that means and what kind of demand there is for it. What else to gain investment? Because it's a great question. I mean, it's like what we need, right? In order. Did you know the original initial investor? Did you have a relationship prior to that? So I was talking to everyone about this idea, but I wasn't really giving anyone like tons of details because I was super protective over it. If somebody wanted to talk to me about it, I mean, I was kind of a little bit of a punk. I was like, oh, well, you have to have an NDA to talk to me about this, you know? And I'm like, so I'm like embarrassed about myself like 7 years ago. Anyway, so I would tell people a few things, and then little by little, like connections started to be made. And my friend, okay, so this is how I met my first investor. It's a husband and wife, like health enthusiast team, and she walked into a frame shop, and I had worked in that frame shop for a year, and the owner was my friend, and she had a green smoothie. And he's like, oh, my friend wants to open a business with green smoothies. And she's like, really? I really want to bring green smoothies into the schools. And he's like, don't leave. I want to give you her number. And then she contacted me, and she's like, I love the idea. I really, you know, and she's like an incredible like believer, you know, in great concepts. And her husband was a little harder to persuade. That's who I really had to bring, you know, the financial analysis and review that with. But you know, she initially said, I definitely want to help. And I had the mindset, I was like, that the money will come. I just want to build really good relationships right now with people, because I know there's just like little crumbs to get me to where I need to be. And so I had that mindset, and I'm like, this person is really awesome. I want to get to know them and grow a relationship with them. And I spent about 2 years, you know, I even watched their kids for a little bit, you know, I went on vacation with them. I really started a relationship, you know, so they could trust, and so that I could trust them too. And then finally, after a couple of years, he was ready and she was ready to see a business plan, and I was ready to show one. And that's how the initial investment started. So it's kind of a unique story, but I think the main point is build relationships, you know, and be prepared with all the information that you can with your business. Sure.
Anyone else have questions?
You know, just one last thing. What I'm seeing is that investors will invest in you. And I know a lot of people say that, but it's really true. You know, there are a lot of great ideas, but I think like if you connect with someone and they're like, I want to invest in this guy. You know, he is, I can tell, he shows up, he's a hard worker. That's another thing they look for. Like super like sense of urgency. Absolutely. How may I help you? You know, kind of demeanor and real emphasis on that. So anyway, yeah, sure.
Hey, so I am from Austin, Texas, and there's a huge demand for vegan food there, but not an oversaturated market. And I don't think anyone has quite tackled the model there that you have. Is Austin on your radar at all for your type of expansion that you're going after?
I think now it is.
I think it's like things are firing in my mind. I think it'd be a great idea for you to look into. Yeah.
My brother lived there, so I will definitely check that out. I think I should, I think the South is great. I want to definitely explore that more. But thank you.
No cheesesteaks, but there's a lot of other things. Right. A lot of opportunity there.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
I was curious about your marketing plan. Is it different for HipCityVeg versus Charlie Was a Sinner, et cetera? And I'm sure it's different between Philadelphia and Washington, but just the Philadelphia market, when you're introducing a new restaurant, what's your marketing plan? What does it look like?
When I'm introducing a new one?
Yeah,
and the difference
in particular, and then how do you sustain it?
Yeah. So marketing plan. So there are a lot of really basic principles that we're following. Obviously social media is huge. We're working with that. Seasonal items, very clear copy that's driving a message, but ultimately we talk a lot at HipCityVeg just about why we do what we do, and also keeping it simple with a very clear focus on the food. We don't want to muddy it too much. It's like, look, guys, it's just a good crispy chicken sandwich that happens to be plant-based, and that's it. So we keep that very simple. The most really the no-brainers kind of thing that I overlooked, like flyers and like check presenters, like little 4x6 check presenter that goes with the check at Charlie, or A-frame outside of HipCityVeg, like these things that I overlooked that everyone's been doing for like ever, is like, that's it. That's what you have to do. You just have to definitely keep the basics. That's number one. Definitely changed, like when we entered a new market. That's a whole nother ballgame. A lot of speaking engagements to just gain awareness. When restaurants enter a new market, a lot of time, especially fast casuals or chains, they usually go in with more than one restaurant. One, because it's extremely expensive to open another market with a single restaurant, but also for brand awareness. And it really is part of their marketing strategy to open multiple at one time. We didn't do that. I don't think that was a bad idea because it was new to me, but I see why people do that, because it really takes a long time to create brand awareness in a new market. And Barbara and Bowen and Charlie, you just have to have a good web presence, good social media presence, and the best marketing is word of mouth, so we just focus on the quality. As long as people like what we're doing and tell other people that they like what we're doing, that's the best marketing you can have. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bob, and I really enjoy what you had to say. Do you have any really big ambitions, such as going public, maybe coming to the next McDonald's?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, very big ambitions. Very big vision for the company long term. In 5 years, I definitely expect us to have over 45 restaurants in the Northeast Corridor. In 10 years, I hope to be on both coasts and through the South. They're definitely big plans. Yeah. Maybe one day going public. It's important to us to keep our triple bottom line in the operating agreement, and hopefully, and before going public as a B Corp. And, but once all that, with that, we would consider also going public eventually. That would be great.
I can help you with that.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deepak. Thanks for the talk.
Thanks.
I was talking to a vegan restaurant owner in Philadelphia, and he was saying how just because these aren't typical businesses in the sense that a lot of them are mission-driven and you really believe in something, like a greater cause, there's no competition between vegan restaurants. I was wondering how true you thought that was.
That's a good question. I think there's definitely fellowship among vegan restaurants for sure, because there's not many. But you notice, if you're like, okay, well, they're doing this, you almost admire what they're doing. Okay, how can I work and do something like that? So there's a lot of, I don't know if I think it's healthy competition. Forgive the pun, healthy. But no, I think it's good. That was silly.
Thanks.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, I'm Bridget. You talked about how reading different books back in 2008 when you were moving home, and how that kind of inspired you to open up HipCityVeg, of course. I was just wondering if you are a cook yourself. Did you find love in vegan cooking? Really, what were like the basis of the things that inspired you to open up a restaurant and have the courage to do that?
Thank you. So I wouldn't consider myself a chef. I really had to find and build relationships with chefs who ended up consulting for me. The first menu, I worked with a chef. We spent several months just at my kitchen counter cooking, and I would say, I really love how, like when a crispy chicken, it tastes like this, and I think like maybe peppercorn, and do something like this, and, he would be like, okay, let me see if I can whip this up, and so that was that conversation back and forth, several tastings over and over again, and that's still my process. So I definitely wouldn't consider myself a chef. I mean, I meal prep every Sunday, but that's just like rice and, and beans and tofu and, some veggies. But I think what I do have is I have a really good palate, and I know what satisfies and what tastes really good. And so that's helped me through the process. And I can discern between a lot of different flavors, so like my palate helps me with that. But, being a chef is a whole nother skill set that's tremendously difficult, and I've been fortunate to have some good chefs along the way. Yeah.